are treated with these catalysts. Okay. Right. So in the slides, it's seen. It you can see it, right? Yes. Can anybody answer? Can you see the slides? All right. So today we'll discuss on that environmental problems. That is, we have our environment, and there we have a lot of pollutions and created by human beings, right? So here is that how the catalysis is helping on this on that. So this, the destruction of atmospheric ozone. We have ozone layer in the atmosphere. So this is a good example of homogeneous catalysis where everything present in the catalyst. If the reactants and the catalysts, all these are in gaseous form, then it's that homogeneous catalysis. Or in the liquid form, everything is in liquid form, it's that homogeneous catalysis. Rest are a heterogeneous catalysis, like your platinum, your palladium, iron. These solid catalysts are working with gases or with in the solution, whereby these are metallic solids catalysts. So is that heterogeneous catalysis? Now, ozone O3 is constantly being formed and broken. It's just forming that forming and it's coming back to oxygen, right? So from oxygen it's being formed and again coming back to oxygen. So this way. So is that it's making a layer of that. So it's being continuously formed and broken up at the high atmosphere by the reaction action of ultraviolet light. So UV light we are getting from sun, right? Now ordinary oxygen molecules absorb ultraviolet light and break into individual oxygen atoms, right? Unpaired electrons in this oxygen. So these have unpaired electrons and are known as free radicals. Once the free radicals are generated, it's very unstable. They are very reactive and very unstable. They need to be stabilized. So the oxygen radicals can then combine with this, with ordinary oxygen molecules to make ozone. So these oxygen radicals will combine with oxygen, fresh oxygen, and form ozone. Somebody has come in. Okay. Okay. So this oxygen plus your free radical oxygen is forming ozone. Now ozone can also split up again into ordinary oxygen and free radical of oxygen by absorbing ultraviolet light. So this is ultraviolet light. UV is dissociating oxygen into these free radicals. Okay. So these free radicals again is reacting with oxygen to form ozone, right? Now, this ozone is again split into oxygen and its free radicals in presence of UV light. So this way, always a layer of ozone is constantly is prevailing in the atmosphere, thus protecting us from UV radiation. So this is a shield, right? It's a very good protection. eh? So the formation and breaking down of ozone is going on all the time, and thus always maintaining an ozone layer which is helping to prevent the harmful UV radiation from reaching the surface of the earth, and we are protected. So you see that the nature is created in a balanced way, very balanced way. It's being created, which means if we disturb it, we will feel the consequence. Which means if we destroy this ozone layer by man-made your gases that we allow them to go into the atmosphere, and thereby it destroys the UV your the ozone layer. Hmm. So chlorofluorocarbons, CFC, chlorofluorocarbons, have you heard the name? You have, most probably you have heard the name. That is CF2Cl2 are extensively used in aerosols and in refrigerants. It's widely used in any aerosols like the spray, body spray we use, or any other spray, means various sprays we have, right? And refrigerant, there we use this CFC. Nowadays, you will find that this is free from chlorofluorocarbon, CFC free. So that's written on the level, it's as a level of that container. Right? It's written that CFC free. What does it mean? That means there is no CFC here, right? So we find that it's okay, fine, that environmentally it's good. What it does harm is that this chlorofluorocarbon, it breaks down like the ozone, the oxygen, it's broken down into oxygen radical. This chlorofluorocarbon also breaks down into free radical chlorine, radical of chlorine, and this catalyze the destruction of the ozone layer. So chlorofluorocarbon is broken in presence of UV light to form this free radical chlorine, and once its chlorine is generated, it's very unstable. It starts hitting the other free radicals, hit the normal, or that that whatever surroundings is, it will hit that one in order to be stable. So what it does with this ozone layer, now its chlorine free radical is attacking this ozone layer instead of oxygen free radical. So what's happening is that ClO free radical is generated. Once this free radical is generated, this is unstable again. It needs to be stabilized. So what it does, it reacts with another oxygen to form this free radical of this chlorine free radical again is generated, and oxygen is formed. This is oxygen radical. Is already we have found it previously by UV, right? So or this ClO free radical will attack ozone layer. Ozone, when it's hit by this free radical, it will form again chlorine free radical and oxygen. Now, chlorine free radical is again generated. So all the time it's generated and hitting this ozone and forming this oxygen and free radical. So ozone layer is no more existing, which means it's destroyed. Because in the previous reaction, what we found is that, go back to that, you see that always it's just maintaining a double arrow, which means formation and decomposition, decomposition. So with oxygen, no harm because it's being produced from oxygen and again coming back to oxygen. But in this case, here what we'll find is that a different thing. Here we have chlorine free radical, and this chlorine free radical is now destroying this ozone layer because it's not filled up by this oxygen. Hmm. So the whole chain is disrupted, and we are finding that ozone layer is now depleting, which means forming holes. So we should not allow the your some light hydrocarbons to go into the atmosphere and take place in this, like this case for chlorofluorocarbon. What is taking place at the atmosphere, it means higher atmosphere, is that producing this free radical and destroying the ozone layer. Now we have in the exhaust pipe of the car or motorcycle, we find that carbon monoxide is coming from uncombustible your hydrocarbons. Unburned hydrocarbons are there, and it's not fully oxidized, which means carbon, instead of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide is formed. Ah, and also we are getting nitrogen oxides. So what's the harm it's bringing is that okay. Anyway, so this carbon monoxide, just 1 minute, I have here. Never mind. Okay, this carbon monoxide is really harmful for our body because it's forming with hemoglobin. It's forming a complex, and we cannot that is your smoke plus fog. We call it smog. So this is in presence of light. It's forming this one. This is environmental pollution. Unburned hydrocarbons is again the environmental pollution, is creating the environmental pollution. Okay. So we have this one, that is your, to remove these pollutants, to treat these pollutants that is coming from the internal combustion engines, we have many catalysts inside. So it involves heterogeneous catalysis, whereby we use platinum, rhodium, and palladium. Platinum and rhodium together in one part, platinum and palladium in another part, right? There are, we'll go to that in details. So catalyst is mounted in a support medium to spread out honeycomb construction to ensure maximum gas contact. So finely divided your rhodium, platinum, and palladium, all these are there to increase the surface area to get more collisions. So taking the reaction between carbon monoxide and nitrogen monoxide as the typical cases, we find that this carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxide are converted to carbon dioxide and nitrogen. These are considered as harmless than carbon monoxide and in nitrogen oxide. Nitrogen is available in the atmosphere as 77% nitrogen as inert gas. Inert is a gas but not inert in the periodic table. However, its nature is inert. Okay, so it's not creating any harm. It's harmless. Carbon dioxide, however, is creating problem, is global warming, right? So it's still better than carbon monoxide, right? And if we plant trees, the trees will take this carbon dioxide and release oxygen. That's why we need to put more trees. So catalytic converters can be affected by catalyst poisoning. So this happens when something which is not a part of the system gets very strongly absorbed onto the surface of the catalyst and preventing the normal reactants from reaching it. So this way, any foreign material, if it occupies the surface of this catalyst, and thereby it will prevent the reactants to come in on the surface of this catalyst. So is that catalyst poison for catalytic converters? Lead is coming from the fuel. It coats the, okay, so it coats the honeycomb of the expensive metals and stops working it, which means lead is coming from petrol or gasoline to make the why we added lead, because to get this combustion very well, very good, which means when the engine is the oil is converted, it generates free radical, and that free radical is trapped by this lead, tetraethyl lead, acting that increased acting or no knocking. So in that catalytic converter, when we are using this catalyst in the catalytic converter, this lead coming from this gasoline and is being deposited on the catalyst bed, and thereby it's poisoning the whole catalyst bed. Yeah. So in the past, lead compounds were added to gasoline to make it burn more smoothly in the engine, but you cannot use a catalytic converter if you are using leaded fuel. There are two types of fuels. One is leaded, another one is unleaded. Of course, we prefer unleaded, but leaded, yes, maybe less cost, but unleaded may be little expensive. Anyway, so catalytic converters have not only helped remove the poisonous gases like carbon monoxide and nitrogen oxides, besides that, it has also forced the removal of poisonous lead compounds from petrol or gasoline. If we are using the catalytic converter, then our vehicle is recommended to use lead-free gasoline, because to save the catalyst in the catalytic converter. So this way we can force the removal of lead addition in the petrol or gasoline. So this way we can remove this lead from using in the gasoline. Right? Catalyst in that your exhaust pipe, this lead is coming to the environment along with this exhaust gases. So it's really a problem. Now, when tetraethyl lead, TEL, burns, it produces not only carbon dioxide and water, but also lead. This lead is to the environment. So this lead can oxidize further to give lead oxide. So lead and lead oxide will quickly over accumulate and destroy an engine. For this reason, the lead scavengers 1,2-dibromomethane and 1,2-dichloroethane, these two are called lead scavengers, which means it will trap lead. It will sweep away the lead. These are used in conjunction with tetraethyl lead in the fuel. So these agents form volatile lead bromide and lead chloride, respectively, which are flashed from the engine into the air. So if you look at it, this is three-way catalytic converter. What is the three-way? One is that we have NOx, NOx. NOx is that oxides of nitrogen. NO, NO2, right? So N2O, all these are oxides of nitrogen. Together we call it NOx, NOx. Oxides of sulfur, we have sulfur dioxide, we have sulfur trioxide, we call it SOx, SOx. All right. So this three-way catalytic converter, which means it has got three jobs. One job is to convert this carbon monoxide, this your hydrocarbon, full combustion to your carbon dioxide and water. Right? If we add oxygen here, so CO2 and H2O is coming from this combustion. Okay. Now this is oxidation part. Another part is that reduction part, where NOx, oxides of nitrogen, is reduced to nitrogen and oxygen. If you have this electrochemical reaction, you will find that the NOx is reduced to nitrogen molecule and oxygen molecule. So here is that NOx is that reaction. It's coming to this in presence of this catalyst, where we used your rhodium together with platinum. Here it is platinum and rhodium. Here it is platinum with palladium. So this part is for oxidation, which means carbon monoxide conversion to carbon dioxide, hydrocarbon, your unburned hydrocarbon conversion to carbon dioxide and water. So carbon monoxide, incomplete combustion of hydrocarbons in petrol when not enough oxygen is present to convert all the carbon to carbon dioxide. Okay, there should be another one, that is conversion of carbon monoxide plus oxygen to carbon dioxide. Where is that one? Okay, here it is. Okay, so now if you see that, as we discussed before, that is this carbon monoxide is poisonous, combines with hemoglobin in blood, prevents oxygen being carried to the cell. So we cannot survive if we have certain concentration of carbon monoxide, and it comes to our blood and makes this one with hemoglobin a complex, and then no oxygen can come in to that to our cell. So how to remove this one? Carbon monoxide plus oxygen, carbon dioxide. Nitrogen oxides, as we discussed, just I'm again showing you the slides. However, so these compounds are the same family of nitrogen dioxide, nitric acid, nitrous oxide, nitrates, and nitric oxide. NO, NOx, oxides of nitrogen, is released in the air. It reacts stimulated by sunlight That is NOx, NOx plus sunlight, UV radiation makes it your smog, photochemical smog, or photochemical smog. So that is your fog and smoke. Together we call it smog, and this is very bad for those who are having heart problem, having asthma. We often find that particulates is in the environment. We call it haze, right? So this type of thing is really very harmful for us, and is creating the environmental pollution. So smog is a pollutant and has adverse effects on children's lungs. So NOx, oxides of nitrogen, reacting with sulfur dioxide to produce acid rain, which is highly destructive to everything it lands on. When we have acid rain, we have on the car, on any other things, right? That acid is coming with this rain. So acid rain corrodes cars, plants, buildings, national monuments, and pollutes lakes and streams to an acidity unsuitable for fish, right? So this is very bad, that acid rain. Sometimes you will find that the monuments made of copper, uh, or the aluminum, it still find that is corroded or is not, shiny as before, and it's due to this acid rain. So NOx can also bind with ozone to create biological mutations such as smog and reduce the transmission of light. We have haze. So this is that environmental problem. So acid rain, smog, water quality, climate change, all these are coming from nitrogen oxides available in the atmosphere. So we need to treat this one. First of all, we need to stop this one releasing in the environment. Even if we release it, it should be converted to pure nitrogen gas and oxygen. Right. So nitrogen and oxygen combine under high temperature conditions. So nitrogen combines with oxygen for NO. In presence of this one, in presence of a the metal catalyst platinum and rhodium. Previously I have shown you, or should I write it anyway? You just write it here, platinum and rhodium. This is that your reduction. Uh, oh no, this is oxidation. Okay, this one is oxidation. Okay, but this one, if it is NO, yes, this one is that forming your. Finally, it will form oxygen and oxygen. Yes, it is. Here it is. Okay. If you write somewhere like this one, right? So it's forming nitrogen and carbon dioxide from this. If it is oxygen here, so if it is oxygen, only oxygen, NO, so it will be nitrogen and oxygen. So anyway, all these are your done in presence of platinum and rhodium catalysts. Unburned occurs, that is, we need to convert this unburned hydrocarbon to fully converted to carbon dioxide and water. So catalyst aids complete the combustion. As I told you, I should have written it, that is your platinum and palladium, right? right? And now, so this is part okay. Now we see that heterogeneous catalysis, that is another part. Just now we have seen some homogeneous catalysis, whereby we find that this gas. Oh, sorry, that here spectrum is that, no, this is your heterogeneous also. But before that, if it is ozone, oxygen, yes, it is, that one is homogeneous catalysis. We'll talk about homogeneous catalysis later, maybe. That is your, if it is sulfuric acid is used with any liquid, your any solution, sulfuric acid is also liquid, solution is liquid, okay? So it's that homogeneous reaction, homogeneous catalysis. All right, so this is heterogeneous also. So now the hydrogenation of a carbon-carbon double bond. We have ethylene. The simplest example of this is the reaction between ethene and hydrogen in presence of a nickel catalyst. So what it does is that the industrial use is that hydrogenation, addition of hydrogen to the vegetable oil, where we have when it's double bond, we can convert this double bond by adding hydrogens. This is called hydrogenation. So hydrogenation of this vegetable oil, we produce margarine, right? Which also involves reacting a carbon-carbon double bond in the vegetable oil with hydrogen in presence of nickel catalyst. So as a chemist, if we find that there is a conversion of vegetable oils to margarine, you will be handling nickel catalysts. Good, no problem. But problem is that you have to check that this nickel catalyst is coming to margarine or not. Many times it happens that this nickel, if the process quality is not controlled, this catalyst can be associated with this food product. This is very dangerous. We have to look into it, that whatever the catalyst we are adding in the food product, it should not be in the food product by any ppm level. There is a limitation, allowable range, that suppose some ppm, 5 ppm is allowed, or 2 ppm, or 1 ppm. More than that, it's full. There are some your standard allowable range by whose standard, right? We need iron, we need zinc, we need copper, we need your many metals, right? Okay, but beyond certain limit, we cannot take it, right? It is very harmful for us after a certain concentration is crossed. So this nickel is allowed to some extent, yes, true, maybe to very low level, low ppm level. ppm is the parts per million. Now, if it exceeds, yes, it's that harmful thing that we are bringing in this catalysis. So, whenever you are handling any metals for food production, particularly, be very, very careful as a chemist. You should check your quality of these food products, whether the catalysts are there or not. It's very sensitive issue. Often it's there. Sometimes, right? We have this margarine or the ghee, butter, or this type of thing when it's converted. Sometimes, if the quality is not controlled, the catalysts may come in. So, as a quality control officer, you have to check this one. So, the hydrogenation of carbon-carbon double bond is that ethene molecules are adsorbed on the surface of nickel. The double bond between this both ethylene comes in and your hydrogen will come later, because we have hydrogenation we are adding hydrogen in presence of this nickel. So nickel is there, your hydroethane molecules or the vegetable is coming, landing on it, right? Very good. Then after that, uh, suppose the simplest example for this is in presence of nickel catalyst with carbon-carbon double bond ethylene. It can be, as I told you, that is the vegetable oil where we have this carbon-carbon double bond, carbon single bond, double bond, single bond, many carbon double bonds are here. So hydrogen will come in and will rest on the surface and become your hydrogen atoms. Hydrogen molecules are adsorbed on the surface of nickel catalyst. When this happens, the hydrogen molecules are broken into hydrogen atoms, separate atoms. So this can move around on the surface of nickel. Now this one will be taken up by uh, this your carbon. So double bond is broken and this hydrogen is coming in. Another hydrogen will come to this place. Then it will fly. It will go away. It will leave this place. So if a hydrogen atom diffuses close to one of the bonded carbon, here one hydrogen, another hydrogen is coming to this second carbon. Bond between this carbon and nickel, this carbon nickel is now replaced by this carbon and hydrogen. So it will go up. Here it is again carbon and this hydrogen will come here also and it will go up. That means it will leave the surface of nickel catalyst. So if it is left, okay, fine, it will leave and fresh hydrogen will come in and make it hydrogen atoms. Fresh vegetable oil or this carbon-carbon double bond compound will come in and again start the catalytic reaction will go on. So this way, so whatever the products are formed on the surface of the catalyst must be removed. So this is that requirement for this catalyst. Catalyst should be such a way that it should not have a very strong bond with this reactants is forming the products. After that products are trapped on the surface. It's not at all a catalyst. It cannot serve as that catalyst because we need to allow some other unreacted molecules to come in and have the catalytic reaction. Right? So we find that transition metal compounds can work as a catalyst. So their part is to change the oxidation states. They work electrochemically, right? So changing that means oxidation reduction by this way, which means changing the oxidation state. So if you look at it, the reaction is catalyzed by copper ion, that is Cu2 plus. What is that reaction? Iron and vanadium. Both are your multivalent. Vanadium has got many valencies, V3, 4, 5, right? Vanadium plus 5 we have also, vanadium pentoxide we have, right? So we have many variables of this. Iron also, ferrous oxide or ferrous chloride, ferric chloride, we have this valency changes. When it means Fe3 plus can be converted to Fe2 plus because we have this ferrous, right? We have V4, we have V3, we have V5. So all these have got various oxidation states. Now we have a catalyst where it's also changes the by changing the oxidation states of the reactants. So we see that what it does, copper ion is changing the valency, that means the oxidation states of V3 plus to V4 plus, right? Now copper again is changed to Cu2 plus to cupric ion is become cuprous ion. ferric ion, again on the other hand, with this cuprous ion will form ferrous ion and cupric ion. Now ferric ion with this V3 plus ion will be reduced to Fe2 plus. Ferric ion will be reduced to ferrous, and V3 plus will be oxidized to V4 plus. So this way we change the oxidation state, and this catalyst is working by changing the oxidation states of these reactants, and we have these products. So this is electrochemical reaction. In fact, the catalyst is helping this way, changing the oxidation state. If we see that the reaction between iodide ion and your persulfate ion, a slow reaction, because reactants are negative ions and there is the repulsion, yes, true. So the addition of iron will act as the catalyst. So iron will catalyze, you will catalyze the reaction this way. That is, your persulfate ion will have sulfate ion, anion, and ferric ion, right? Now ferrous has become ferric. This what it does, it converted this persulfate anion, right? Persulfate ion will be changed to sulfate ion. So ferric, again, this generated ferric, what is generated here, right, will react with iodide ion and make it iodine, right? And this ferric will convert to ferrous. Now, this way, that is your persulfate ion with iodide ion will form sulfate anion and iodine, right? Okay. All right. So this is that your transition metal compounds various states is the transition metals. So this catalyst work in this way by changing the oxidation potential. That means your oxidation numbers is changed, and thereby we get this electrochemical reaction, right? Okay, with this I thank you. Any question, please?